Well, we've driven and frankly adored the €100,000 510 horsepower Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio with its 2.9 turbocharged V6 built for Alfa Romeo by Ferrari, although don't mention that too loudly because apparently Ferrari doesn't like you talking about it too much. But here we have the Giulia in slightly more ordinary form. This is the Veloce, and this can be considered a halfway house and indeed a halfway price between the standard car and the Quadrifoglio. This uses a 2-litre turbocharged petrol 4-cylinder engine that has a healthy and robust 280 horsepower, and it does come in this rather lovely exclusive blue paint job, complete with the yellow brake calipers tucked in behind those gorgeous telephone dial alloy wheels. Gorgeous is a word that comes up over and over again when you drive pretty much any Alfa Romeo, but certainly this one. This is a truly stunning car to look at, way more exciting to cast your eyes over in the car park than a BMW 3 Series or an Audi A4 or a Mercedes C-Class or even a Jaguar XE or a Lexus IS. Is it as good as any of those cars? Well, first of all, I have to declare an interest. I've always been an Alfa Romeo fan ever since my dear departed grandmother had the only Alfa Sud in West Cork when I was growing up. One of the first cars I was ever allowed to sit in the front of, as it happens. And I still remember going up the Bandon Road, overtaking trucks with that fantastic little flat 4 engine howling its head off. This does take me back to those days to a certain extent. It isn't a perfect car by any means, and I'm not blind to its faults in spite of that childhood memory. It does suffer a bit here on the inside, although it's a very pretty interior, very comfortable, great seats, decent refinement, and overall good quality. There are still a few patches like this click wheel controller for the infotainment system, like the gear lever, like some of the plastics that just aren't up to scratch when it comes to dealing with the German competition. Other things like the infotainment system just isn't as sophisticated, although I have to say it is quite easy, simple and straightforward to use, and it works reasonably well. That said, there are a lot of good things in here. Apart from the seats, there's the engine stop-start button here in the steering wheel, which is mounted just as it would be on a Ferrari FF or GTC4 Lusso if you prefer. There's lovely clear main instruments, and overall it seems pretty well built and pretty well put together. We haven't had a single squeak or rattle in our entire week with the car. Nothing's fallen off, nothing's broken, everything's worked pretty much perfectly. And I know some people will quibble about the outside, say it's not as good looking as an Alfa should be or as Alfas have been in the past, but personally I think it's pretty stunning. Again, I do love this blue paint job on the Veloce model, and those telephone dial alloys are just an all-time classic. But the best thing about the Giulia, the best thing about this Veloce is the way it drives. This is a proper driver's car, in a way that the BMW 3 Series and certainly the Audi A4 seem to have forgotten how to be. This thing has electrically good steering, and electrically boosted for that matter, but it feels plugged in. It just feels connected to the road underneath, and there's a constant little chatter and movement just under the edges of your palms and the tips of your fingers. It feels alive underneath you. Now, if you twist this dial and put it into dynamic mode, it comes even more alive, because in the wet, certainly on a day like today where it's partially damp and partially dry, you really can get that back end moving a bit in corners if you drive it without, shall we say, due care and attention. But that's all part of the appeal. It feels a little bit more wild and a little bit more, shall we say, Latin than its competitors do, and they have become rather more dour over the years. There's a nice crackling exhaust note from this 280 horsepower engine, and performance is really very good, although fuel consumption's not. In fact, on a motorway run, it's not that much less thirsty than the Quadrifoglio, which has almost twice the horsepower. Still, even with objectivity screwed firmly back on, I think that this is a car that deserves your attention. I think this is a car that deserves a little bit of success. It is Alfa Romeo getting back into the arena, getting back into true competition with the likes of BMW, with the likes of Audi, with the likes of Mercedes, with the likes of Jaguar, companies which it actually came before in the 50s and 60s when it came to producing cars like this, mid-size saloons with a bit of sporting intent, with a bit of character, with a bit of je ne sais quoi. No, I don't know what the Italian for je ne sais quoi is. It isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. In fact, it's really very good, and I think you should consider it if you're purchasing in this part of the market. It's well worth your attention, certainly well worth driving.